didn't work. They said I would be out for hours. 3, maybe 4 at minimum. That's what the anesthesiologist told me with the complete confidence of someone who does this 16 times a day. And yet here I am, back. Far too early, and my head feels like it's been filled with wet concrete. And you're still here. I keep doing this. Every time I close my eyes, even for a second, even when I'm exhausted and not thinking about anything at all, you show up. You materialize exactly like this. Sitting somewhere nearby, looking at me like I'm the only thing in the room that matters. My subconscious has apparently decided that this is its default state, that this is what peace looks like. It's you, sitting close enough that I can hear you breathe. It's cruel, honestly. You'd think a surgical dose of anesthesia would be strong enough to keep you out of my head for 3 hours. But I guess whatever this is, whatever is deeply broken inside me that makes me search for your face in every quiet moment, is stronger than the medication. Don't move. Just stay there. Right there. Let me have this for a minute. Before I wake up properly. Before reality finishes reassembling itself, and I have to open my eyes and look at an empty plastic chair and remember that you're probably halfway across the city right now, living your life, completely oblivious to the fact that I'm lying flat on my back, thinking about you. You look tired. Even in my head, you carry that exhaustion in your neck and shoulders. You're always holding too much weight for too many people. You hold everyone together until your hands bleed, and then you smooth your expression out and tell them you're perfectly fine. I hate that you do that. But you're safe here. In my head, nobody needs anything from you. You don't have to fix a single thing. You just get to sit there, quietly, and let the world spin without you for a few minutes. I'm glad my subconscious pulled you here. I missed you today. I missed you the exact second they lowered the mask over my face. You know what the worst part of my day is? You don't. You can't. You're just a projection made out of fentanyl and whatever cocktail they fed into my IV line to put me under. But I'll tell you anyway. Let's pretend you're actually sitting there. Let's pretend you can hear every single thing I'm saying right now. The worst part of my day is the moment your name lights up on my phone. Because for about 5 seconds before I answer it, I run the same calculation I always run. I think about the tone of my voice, about whether I should let it ring twice first so I don't seem too available, about exactly how much of myself I'm allowed to give you over a phone call without crossing a line I'm not supposed to cross. I think about it every single time, like clockwork. 5 seconds of internal negotiation just to answer a phone call from my best friend. It's an act. Every single piece of it is an act. Every time we hang out, every time you fall asleep on my couch, I spend the entire time pretending I'm not completely, devastatingly aware of exactly how many inches of space exist between your shoulder and mine. I have measured that distance in my head hundreds of times. I know exactly what it would cost me to close it. And I don't. because I am an excellent actor when I have to be. But I can say all of that to you right now, because this is just the anesthesia talking, and you're not really here. And by the time I wake up fully, this room is going to be empty again. I'll be back to performing. Why are you looking at me like that? Your face just changed. Something in your expression just shifted. And hallucinations don't do that. They don't react. They just exist in whatever frozen, perfect position my brain assigned them. You just physically flinched. Don't try to hide it. Did you just touch me? Your hand is cold. You always have cold hands, even in the middle of summer. I remember thinking about that once, very specifically. We were on my couch and you reached across me to grab the remote and your fingers brushed my arm and I thought, her hands are always cold and I want to hold them until they're not. Why does my brain retain details like that so precisely? Wait, let me do something. Let me move my hand. I just want to touch the edge of the chair, to feel whether it's real or whether it's the same flat, featureless nothing that hospital rooms always feel like in the subconscious. I just need to verify. You're solid, completely solid. I can feel your heartbeat against the inside of my thumb. You're gripping my wrist like you're trying to keep me physically anchored to the bed, like you're afraid the anesthesia will pull me back under if you let go. That's not something a hallucination does. Hallucinations don't grip. They don't have a pulse. You're real. Oh God. You are actually sitting in a plastic chair in the middle of a hospital recovery room right now. When did you get here? How long have you been sitting in that chair? Did you arrive before or after they put me under? Have you been here the entire time, 2 hours, just waiting? You were only supposed to be the name on a form. You were the emergency contact on a piece of paperwork, and nobody actually camps in a hospital waiting room for a routine outpatient procedure. I didn't expect you to stay. I didn't think you would burn your entire afternoon just to sit next to me while I was unconscious. But you stayed, which means you heard it. Everything I said while I thought I was dreaming. About you, about the couch, about exactly what it costs me every day to perform being your friend. Please don't pull your hand away. Just leave it exactly where it is. I am completely unequipped to pretend I didn't mean any of that right now. What exactly did I say out loud? Don't give me that look. Don't use the gentle, contained expression you pull out when you're managing someone who's spiraling. I need you to sit there and tell me, word for word, exactly what poured out of my mouth before I realized you were actually in the room with me. Because my head is still submerged. Everything feels like it's coming through 50 feet of water. I can't reliably distinguish between the conversations I run through in my head when I'm alone at midnight and the things that are apparently happening in real time on this hospital bed right now. Did I mention the phone calls? Did I say something about the couch? Did I tell you about the thing I do where I calculate the distance between our shoulders when we sit next to each other at dinner? Because that last one would be particularly hard to walk back. You're blushing. Your entire neck just flushed red, and you've broken eye contact twice in the last 10 seconds. Okay, so I said all of it. Every single thing I have spent 2 years carefully packaging and suppressing, I apparently handed to you in a hospital recovery room while I was still half unconscious. Every pathetic, precise, carefully guarded thing I swore I would take to the grave rather than risk disturbing whatever we've built. Gone. Dissolved. In one pharmaceutical monologue. That is genuinely impressive self-destruction, even for me. I know you're uncomfortable. I know part of your brain is right now filing through every interaction we've had in the last 2 years and trying to figure out if this changes everything. Whether you just lost the one person in your life who didn't want anything from you. I'm not demanding anything. I want to be extremely clear about that. Don't tell me it's just the meds. Don't smile and tell me we don't have to talk about it. Because if we bury this right now, the silence that lives between us when I'm sober is going to be absolutely deafening. Just look at me. Tell me how bad it is. Be honest. I can take it. You're not going to answer me. You're going to sit there and try to redirect. I can see exactly what you're doing. You're buying time. You're running through every possible version of this conversation in your head. Every angle, every exit ramp, every diplomatic way to respond that keeps us both intact. You always do this. When something catches you off guard, you go very, very still and you think before you speak, like you're editing yourself in real time. Let me save you the trouble of trying to calculate the safest answer. Yes, it was all intentional. Every single movie night, every 11 p.m. drive, every time I showed up right when you needed someone without you having to ask, that wasn't coincidence. I don't accidentally remember which obscure film you mentioned once 2 summers ago. I deliberately retained it the second you said it, because I retain everything you say. Every detail, every offhand preference, every throwaway sentence you said and immediately forgot. I have a catalog of you, and it is extensive. I know what you're afraid of right now. You're afraid this changes everything. That our whole friendship was secretly a setup, and now you have to retroactively recontextualize every time I sat next to you on that couch and said nothing. Every shoulder squeeze, every late night phone call. I understand why that's terrifying. When a guy does this, when he confesses something like this after 2 years, the assumption is that he was running a long con, that the friendship was always just a waiting room. But I'm not going to demand anything from you. I am literally lying flat in a hospital bed with saline running through a vein in my arm. I don't have the energy left for an agenda. It takes an agonizing amount of self-control to suppress this 24 hours a day, to sit next to you and perform composure, to smile when you talk about other men, to keep my hands folded in my lap when every instinct I have is screaming at me to close the distance. I'm not apologizing for saying it out loud. Pulling the curtain back doesn't create the feeling. It just means you can finally see it. Don't lean away from me. Just sit there and let me look at you for a minute. I know this is uncomfortable. I know the natural instinct right now is to either call a nurse or simply refuse to engage with anything I say until I sober up and you can pretend this conversation never happened. And honestly, that's a reasonable response. I've essentially just dismantled the entire architecture of our friendship in the span of about 4 minutes. But the nurse isn't going to get here fast enough to unsay any of it. So you might as well just sit there. You know what's genuinely fascinating to me right now? The fact that you still think I don't see everything you do. You're shifting your weight to the right side because the hospital chair is uncomfortable and you've been sitting in it for too long. You cross your arms when you're processing something complicated and you need to protect yourself from the emotional weight of it. You've done it in every difficult conversation we've ever had. And you're doing it right now. You also just scratched the back of your neck. You only do that when you're lying, or when you're trying to hide the fact that you're violently nervous about something you can't control. Nobody else notices that about you. They take you at face value. They look at you and see someone completely collected, someone impenetrable, someone who doesn't need anything from anyone ever. But I don't see that. I see the mechanical effort it takes to hold that expression in place. I have watched you maintain that face through things that would break other people completely, and I have always known exactly how much it costs you. You can't hold eye contact with me right now, because you know the second you do, I'm going to be able to read exactly what's going on behind your eyes, same as I always can. I've been reading you for 2 years. You have absolutely no privacy from me. I'm not saying that to be cruel. I'm saying it because you have spent so long convincing the world that you're entirely self-sufficient. And I think you're exhausted from it. You don't have to do it in this room. Not with me. You're still watching the door. Still waiting for someone in scrubs to walk in and give you an excuse to stop this conversation. They're not coming. They checked my vitals 10 minutes ago. You have a solid window of uninterrupted time in this sterile little room, and I intend to use every second of it. You hate the word predictable. I know that already. You work very hard at being the kind of person nobody can fully read. You cultivate a certain quality of mystery. Not deliberately, not performatively, but as a genuine defense mechanism. If people can't track you, they can't leverage you. But you're not mysterious to me. You have never been mysterious to me. Do you know what your real laugh sounds like? Not the polished one you use at work events when someone makes a mediocre joke and you want to keep the energy light. Not the warm, encouraging chuckle you use when your friends say something they're proud of. I mean your actual, completely involuntary laugh, the one you have no control over. You only use it when you're completely depleted and comfortable at the same time. And you almost exclusively use it on my couch at something I say at 2 a.m. when neither of us plan to still be awake. Your head goes back. Your shoulders drop about 3 inches. You lose control of the sound for maybe 1 full second before you pull it back in. I have a catalog of every single time I've pulled that laugh out of you. I keep it like it's currency, because in some way it is. It means you dropped the performance. It means you forgot, just briefly, that you were supposed to be holding yourself together. I don't study just anyone like that. I don't dedicate that kind of attention to anyone else in my life. But the way you move through a room, the way you hold yourself differently, depending on who's watching. When you walk into my apartment and the door closes behind you, something physically changes in your posture. The tension bleeds out of your shoulders and your neck. You become the real version of yourself. I have watched that transition hundreds of times, and I would rearrange my entire life to keep being the place where it happens. If I were sober right now, I would have stopped talking about 4 chapters ago. I would have backpedaled, made it weird and light and self-deprecating. Use the "I'm just being protective, it's a friend thing" line I've used every other time the boundary started showing. I'm very good at that. I've had years of practice at converting sincerity into something that sounds casual. But the medication is still doing its thing, and I seem to have lost access to the part of my brain that knows when to stop. Here's the thing about the bar incident last month. You know the one, that guy with the badly applied cologne who kept circling back to you every 20 minutes even after you'd clearly, politely declined twice. You were doing that thing you do, the smile that goes all the way to your eyes but not to your jaw because your jaw is locked tight. The smile that says, "I am handling this," while every other part of your face says, "I want to leave. I was sitting exactly 4 feet behind you. I clocked him the second he walked over the first time. And I sat there, through both approaches, with my hand wrapped around my glass, watching you manage a situation you shouldn't have had to manage in the first place." I wanted to stand up. I wanted to walk over and just position myself between the two of you, not aggressively, just physically make him redirect. Make him look at me instead of you. But that's not what a best friend does unless he's asked. A best friend doesn't claim space around you like that. So I sat there. I stayed completely still. He came back a third time, and you turned slightly in my direction, just a fraction of a degree, like you were about to look for me, and I was already standing up. He left before I got there. You handled it yourself, like you always do. You turned back to the bar, and I sat back down, and I picked up the glass I'd nearly snapped. The bartender replaced it without me asking. He'd apparently been watching the whole time. I'm not sure which one of us he felt sorrier for. Don't shake your head at me. I know what that expression means. It means you're doing the calculation where you decide whether I'm just emotionally compromised from the procedure or whether this is something you actually have to take seriously. You're trying to determine whether to file this under unusual situation or under something permanent just changed. Go ahead and file it properly. I'll wait. The emergency contact form. I want to talk about the emergency contact form. You think I put your name on there because I didn't have better options, because my family is across the country, because my 2 closest work friends are the kind of people you call to move a couch, not to sit in a hospital waiting room. You assumed I defaulted to you out of practical necessity. I didn't. I thought about it for 6 days. I specifically chose you because I needed to run a test, because I'd spent months not knowing whether what exists between us is some profound one-sided delusion I've constructed, or if there's something real on your end that you're just as carefully suppressing as I am. And the cleanest test I could design was this. Write your name on a piece of paper, say nothing about it, and see whether you show up. The standard response to, "Will you be my emergency contact?" is yes. That's the social obligation. But actually appearing, sitting in a waiting room for 2 hours, navigating the front desk when they try to make you wait, that's a choice. That's a decision someone makes because they want to be there. You were here before I went into the operating room. The technician told me someone had already checked in for me. That stopped me cold for about 30 seconds. And Then they put the oxygen mask over my face, and I went under, still thinking about it. And then I woke up, and you were right there. I've watched you handle difficult situations calmly dozens of times. I've seen your voice go flat and precise when someone tries to steamroll you. The chin drops exactly 1 centimeter, and the temperature of the room drops with it. I almost grabbed you and kissed you the first time I saw you do it. I don't have a good explanation for the amount of restraint it took not to. The safe guy. Just the friend. The one you call when the pipe under your sink decides to fail at 9 p.m. on a Wednesday. The one who drives you to the airport before the sun is up and actually remembers which terminal. The reliable, uncomplicated, completely non-threatening fixture in your life who just exists there, dependably, and asks for nothing. You don't see it as a role. You just think, that's who I am. You think I am genuinely that comfortable simply being near you with no other agenda. I want you to understand something. I have watched you sleep on my couch. Not once or twice. Many, many times over 2 years. I know the pattern of it. I know that you start on your side, facing toward the back cushions, and at some point in the first hour, you roll slightly onto your back. I know that your left knee twitches when you're dreaming something stressful. I know the exact sound your breathing makes when you shift from light sleep into something deeper, where you stop monitoring yourself. Your mouth opens just slightly. The small line between your eyebrows disappears. Every conscious effort you make to present as someone who doesn't need protecting just dissolves. And what's left underneath it is something quiet and entirely unguarded. I sit in the dark after the movie ends, and I watch you breathe for sometimes an hour. Just the sound of the television going to the menu screen, and your breathing, and the ambient noise from outside my windows. And it is the most peaceful I feel all week. Because in those 3 hours on my couch, whatever you are to the rest of the world doesn't apply. You're not managing anyone. You're not solving anything. You're just sleeping in the safest place you'll let yourself be. Technically, you're just a friend catching a nap. Technically, I'm just a person who didn't want to wake you up. But I designed that apartment with you in mind, the specific couch, the particular temperature I keep the room, the blackout material on the second window because the streetlight used to bother you. You never asked me to do any of it. You just arrived one day and it all fit like it had always been that way. Because it had. I built it for you. You just didn't know. You thought this was organic. Our entire dynamic. You think we just drifted naturally into this pattern of seeing each other 3 times a week? That I happen to be free whenever you need someone? That the friendship deepened on its own because we get along well and the timing was right and we both happen to like the same obscure things? None of that is coincidence. I do this thing in group settings that you've never noticed. When we walk into a crowded room together, I track the layout in about 15 seconds. I identify which seats have the best sight lines, which conversations are already established and likely to pull people in different directions, where the bottlenecks are going to form in the room. And then, I calculate the most natural path to whatever configuration keeps me closest to you. If we're at a dinner and there are 8 people, I already know where I'm sitting before anyone else has picked up a menu. Sometimes, someone else moves toward that seat, They don't know they're doing it. They just saw an open chair. I intercept them. Not rudely. I never do anything that would be noticed. I just redirect the conversation slightly, shift my trajectory, make some minor social maneuver that results in them realizing a different chair makes more sense. By the time everyone settles, the arrangement looks completely natural. I've done that more times than I can count. It requires almost no effort at this point. It's automatic. In the coffee shop on Thursdays, I know you know which one. The one downstairs from your office that you think I wander into because I work nearby and it's a good neighborhood. I don't work nearby. I've never worked nearby. It takes me 25 minutes in traffic to get to that block. I go specifically because I know your boss always has a standing meeting at 1, which means you leave the building at 12:45 if you're going for coffee. And you almost always go for coffee on Thursdays because mornings are brutal for you and you usually skip breakfast. I plan my entire Thursday around manufacturing a reason to stand in line behind you and buy your order before you can get to the register. And then I act completely surprised to see you there every single time. Here's what it actually feels like to listen to you talk about other men. You don't know because you've never had a reason to think about it from where I'm sitting. You come to me because I'm safe, because I give you honest, measured, practical advice without any of my own feelings contaminating it. Because I'm the guy who will actually help you decode a text message instead of just telling you what you want to hear. And I do all of that. I show up every single time. But here's what's happening on the inside while I sit across the table from you and calmly analyze some stranger's communication patterns. Every single time you pull out your phone to show me a message from someone who isn't paying you the right kind of attention, a very small, very controlled part of me wants to take that phone, put it face down on the table, and ask you at what point you're going to stop auditing other people's effort and start noticing mine. I don't do that because that's not what a best friend does. Instead, I read the messages. I give you the real answer, not the one designed to make you feel better, but the accurate one. I tell you when a guy is actually interested and just bad at showing it. And I tell you when someone is wasting your time. I am meticulous about it. All while sitting perfectly still, jaw exactly as relaxed as it needs to be, expression neutral, and supportive, not giving you a single reason to look up from your phone and think something is wrong. Do you know how much disciplinary training it takes to hold that face? To listen to you describe some man who has the actual ability to pursue you openly, without an architecture of suppression built around him, and just nod? I would never leave you looking at a blank screen for 10 hours, wondering if you said the wrong thing. I would never make you feel like your attention was something to be strategically rationed. I'm telling you this while medicated, lying in a hospital bed, because it is the only context in which I can say it without immediately burying it under a joke. I am so tired of being the safe option who helps you find the right option. It's exhausting to be harmless. People assume that a calm, measured person is calm and measured because it comes naturally, because they're built that way. Temperamentally low affect. No big feelings, no big reactions. Just someone who moves through the world at a comfortable, unthreatening frequency. That's not what I am. That's what I've constructed, specifically for you. Friday nights on my couch. You in your oversized sweatshirt, legs folded underneath you, holding a mug that's been empty for 40 minutes because you'd rather hold it than get up. You lean into my shoulder at some point in the second hour, and you stay there. You don't announce it. You don't make it a moment. You just shift your weight, and your head finds my shoulder like it's the most natural thing in the world. You think I'm comfortable with that. You think I'm at ease. I go completely still the second your hair touches my neck. I stop breathing for about 3 seconds while I remind my entire nervous system not to react, not to turn my head, not to shift my weight into you and pull you closer, which is the only thing in the world I actually want to do in that moment. I sit there like a piece of furniture, and I stare at the television screen with the focused attention of someone defusing a bomb. Because if I move even a fraction of an inch in your direction, it isn't just comfort anymore. And I know, I have always known, that the second it isn't just comfort, you pull back. Not maliciously, just because you need the boundary to be there, and I have always let you have it. So I become completely inert. I let you use me as a pillow. I sit in the dark with you for hours, and I perform total composure, because the alternative is admitting what's actually happening inside me every time you're within arm's reach. Nobody is that naturally unbothered. Nobody sits next to the person they want most and feels nothing. I want you to understand exactly how much it costs me to appear that way. Every single time. It works. You trust me completely. You feel entirely safe. I hate how effectively it works. This friendship isn't organic. I want you to understand that clearly. Not a single part of what we have developed naturally. You think we drifted into this level of closeness because we're compatible? And the timing aligned? And neither of us was putting up walls? You think it happened by itself. It happened because I built it. Methodically. Over 2 full years. I identified very early on what you needed that nobody else in your life was providing. You were surrounded by people who took more than they gave. People who treated your competence and your patience as a resource to extract from, rather than a quality to protect. You were the person who showed up for everyone, and almost nobody showed up for you in the same way. So I decided to be the exception. Quietly. Without making it a declaration or a transaction. I made myself completely reliable. I answered every time you called, whether it was 11 a.m. or 2 in the morning. And I always showed up the right way, without needing you to manage my feelings about being called. I fixed problems without being asked. I remembered things you said in passing that everyone else forgot. I showed up when it would have been easier not to. And after about 6 months of that, something shifted. You stopped hedging when you talked to me. You stopped the small, polite distance people maintain when they're still deciding if they trust someone. You started talking to me like I was already inside the wall, instead of still trying to get through it. I'd earned it. I'd been extremely patient about earning it, and I know how that sounds. I know it sounds like I was running a long, calculated operation specifically designed to make myself indispensable to you. That's because that's exactly what I was doing. But I want to be precise here. I wasn't doing it to manufacture pressure on you. I wasn't building toward a confrontation where you'd owe me something. I was doing it because I wanted to be the safest thing in your life. Because you deserve to have something that doesn't require maintenance, and never lets you down and doesn't disappear when you stop being useful. I built myself into the structure of your life, and I would do it again, exactly the same way. I just don't want to be invisible in it anymore. I feel dizzy. The room is tilting again. Not the disoriented kind of dizzy from when I first woke up. This is the heavier kind. The kind where the edges of things start going soft and my thinking loses its edges. They warned me this would happen. Second wave of sedation, they called it. The body metabolizes the first dose, and the second one asserts itself before the system fully clears. Which means I'm running out of time. I need to say one more thing before the clarity goes. I don't regret any of this. Not the 2 years of performing, not the couch, not the phone calls, not the Thursday coffee runs. I would do every single piece of it again without changing a single detail. Because even in its most expensive, most complicated, most quietly painful form, having you in my life the way I've had you in my life is still the best thing I've managed to do with myself. I'd rather have you as just a friend than not at all. That's not a noble sentiment. It's a practical one. Losing you entirely is not something my nervous system is willing to accommodate. But I'm running out of reasons to maintain the fiction. I've been running out of them for a while. Every time you look at me a certain way, every time you choose to come to me first instead of someone else, every time you say something small and specific that could only mean something if you were paying the same amount of attention I've been paying, and then you just move on like you didn't say it. I keep cataloging those moments. I keep returning to them. And every time I do, the wall between what I allow myself to feel and what I actually feel gets exactly 1 degree thinner. I don't know how many more degrees it has left. The room is spinning again. I can feel the second wave pulling at the back of my skull. Just stay where you are. Don't move back to the chair. Stay close. I need to know you're still there when the fog comes back. Don't let me reach for you and find empty air. Please. No, wait. Not yet. I'm not ready to go back under. The fog is closing in from the edges of the room, and my body keeps sinking into the mattress like it's trying to pull me down. And every time I blink, it takes longer to force my eyes back open. I can feel the second sedation wave doing what it's going to do, and I can't stop it. But I'm not done yet. Grab my hand, the one that's closest to you. Hold it the way you were holding it before. The cold fingers. Don't pull away. I need the physical sensation to stay present. When everything else starts to dissolve, physical sensation is the last thing that cuts through. I just need a few more minutes of clarity before the machinery in my head goes offline again. Because here's what I'm afraid of. Not the surgery, not the hospital, not any of the things I'm technically supposed to be nervous about in this context. I'm afraid of what happens when I wake up sober. When I wake up tomorrow morning, clear-headed, fully functional, entirely in control of myself again, I am going to walk back through every single thing I said in this room, and I am going to want to take it back. Not because I don't mean it, but because the version of me that operates on a daily basis is not equipped to stand in this level of exposure. The sober version will apologize, will make it smaller, We'll use the anesthesia as an excuse to repackage the whole thing as a strange pharmaceutical side effect and ease us both back toward the comfortable fiction. Don't let me do that. I'm asking you right now, while I still have the capacity to mean it, when I try to walk it back tomorrow, hold your ground. Repeat what I said to you. Make me stay in the conversation I just opened. Because if you let me exit gracefully, I will build the wall back up so quickly and so completely that you will never find the door again. Use it against me. You have the ammunition now. Every detail I gave you tonight is a weapon. I am handing you the blueprint to my defenses. Please don't let me rebuild them. Let me tell you exactly how this goes, so you know. Tomorrow morning, whenever I finally fully process this out of my system, there's a very specific sequence of events that happens. I've run this scenario before, in different forms, in different contexts when the mask started to slip. I know my own playbook. I wake up. I remember everything. And in the space of about 90 seconds, the sober version of my brain decides we are never speaking any of this again. I'll deflect. That's the first move. I'll make a self-deprecating comment about anesthesia hallucinations and what happens to people who go under without eating first. I'll make it funny. I'm very good at turning things that are actually devastating into anecdotes. Then, if you try to hold the thread, I'll reframe. I'll say something like, "You know me. I get dramatic when I'm not in control of a situation." I'll turn it into a personality quirk instead of a confession. And if you push past that, if you refuse to let me exit, I'll get very quiet and very composed and very logically minded about it. I'll walk through each thing I said and provide a reasonable, measured, entirely sober explanation for why it doesn't mean what it sounded like it meant. I am extremely persuasive when I need to protect something, especially from myself. So I am asking you right now, while the filter is gone and I have no mechanism for damage control, to memorize what I told you in this room. Every specific detail. The room geometry I calculate in restaurants. The Thursday coffee. The couch design. The catalog of your laugh. The emergency contact test. Write it down if you have to. Keep it somewhere I can't reach. Because it's the only leverage that will work against me. Generalities won't do it. You said you had feelings. I'll spin that in under 10 seconds. But specifics. Specifics I can't explain away. Specifics that prove I have been paying attention to a level of detail that nobody archives about someone they're just friends with. That's what you use. Tomorrow, or whenever I try to go back to the way it was, just say one specific thing. Watch what happens. Watch me realize I have nowhere to run. That's the only exit I'm giving you. You think the anesthesia caused this. I know that's how you're framing it, because it's the most comfortable frame available. The medication destabilized his inhibitions, stripped some neurological guardrail, produced thoughts he would normally have regulated before they reached his mouth. A medical anomaly, not something that reflects a pattern. That's a reasonable conclusion, and it is completely wrong. I was already losing this fight before I walked into this building. 6 months ago, I started noticing that the effort required to maintain the persona was scaling up faster than I could compensate for. Small things at first. Taking a half second too long to respond to something neutral you said because I'd locked onto something in your face I wasn't supposed to be paying that much attention to. Sitting too still when you touched my arm in passing because my nervous system reacted before I could stop it. The controls were degrading. 3 nights before this procedure, you sent me a goodnight text at midnight. You do this sometimes. It's casual. A 2-word check-in that probably means nothing within the context of what you actually intended. My immediate response, not my considered response, my immediate response, was to pick up my jacket, walk to my car, drive to your apartment, let myself in with the spare key you gave me for emergencies, and lie down in the dark next to you without saying a single word. I didn't do it. I sat on the edge of my bed for about 4 minutes until that impulse passed, then replied with something normal and went to sleep. But I was close, closer than I'd ever been. So when the opportunity came to actually run whatever this is, the anesthesia didn't create the conditions. It just removed the last mechanism I had for keeping the door closed. Everything behind it was already right there, fully formed, waiting for a moment exactly like this one. I've been building toward this conversation for months. The medication just gave me the perfect alibi. An excuse to finally stop editing myself in front of you. An excuse to hand you the thing I've been carrying alone since the night I realized there wasn't going to be a version of my life where I stopped watching the door whenever you were about to walk through it. I can't keep my eyes open anymore. Every blink is slower than the last one. I'm fighting it. I can feel myself fighting it. But the sedation doesn't respond to willpower. It just keeps pulling, patient and relentless, like something very large and very unhurried, reaching up through the mattress. The ceiling keeps softening at the edges, but I'm not ready to go yet, because I haven't told you the part that matters most. You think the hardest part of all of this has been the wanting, the suppression, the physical discipline of performing composure every time you're within arm's reach. And that is hard. I've made that very clear tonight. But that's not the part that actually causes damage. The part that causes damage is the hollowness. When you're not around, my days run on a kind of default mode. I do the work, I manage the schedule, I have the conversations I'm supposed to have, and it all functions. It all moves forward on its own momentum. But it doesn't feel like anything. It's just motion. A series of correctly performed actions in the correct sequence, generating the correct outcomes. Like running a simulation of a day. And then I open my door, and you're already on the couch with your shoes off and a book in your lap. Or I walk into a room, and I hear your voice before I see you. Or you say my name across a table in your specific way that doesn't sound like anyone else says it. And everything that was flat and mechanical an hour ago suddenly has weight again. You are the reason the day has mass. Without you, it doesn't. I don't know if that's a beautiful thing or the most alarming thing I've ever admitted out loud. Probably both. Probably the kind of thing a person says and immediately regrets. Except I find I can't regret telling you the truth about how necessary you are to the basic quality of my experience of being alive. Squeeze my hand again. Harder. I need the friction of something real. Give me 3 more minutes of staying awake. I'm almost there. Almost finished. Just hold on. I'm losing the fight. I can feel it. My grip on the bed is getting less certain. The monitor somewhere behind my head has slowed its rhythm, and gravity has tripled in this room, and the part of my brain that was running clearly 20 minutes ago has gone somewhere very dark and very warm and very far away. But I'm still here. For now. I'm still here. Don't leave while I'm asleep. I know you have things to get back to. I know there's an entire rest of a day out there that you pressed pause on to come sit in a plastic chair in a hospital room for someone who wasn't even conscious for most of your visit. I know you have a life that doesn't revolve around me, and I have spent 2 years making sure I never made you feel like it should. But tonight I need you to stay. Not because I can't be alone. I can be alone. I've been excellent at being alone for a long time. But because if I wake up in 2 hours to an empty room, the first thing my sober brain is going to do is use that emptiness as evidence that tonight didn't mean anything. That you were here out of obligation and you left the second it was socially acceptable. Which means you're filing all of this away under things we don't talk about. Which means we go back to the fiction. I know that's not fair. I know I'm asking you to make a decision about something I just dropped on you without any warning, with no time to process. I'm aware of how unreasonable this is. You're crying. There's a tear sitting on the edge of your jaw that you haven't wiped away. I can see it from here, even through the fog. You cry like that, very quietly, very still, like you're trying to cry in a way that doesn't take up space. When something reaches the part of you that you keep sealed off from people. I've only seen you cry twice before. Both times it meant something real had finally gotten through. Stay. We can be terrified about tomorrow, together. But for right now, just stay. Tomorrow I'm going to prove I meant every word. I just need tonight to mean something first. Come closer. The chair is too far. I know there are monitors and tubes and the general bureaucratic obstacle course of a hospital bed between us. But if you lean against the bed rail, right here, just the edge, you don't have to actually sit on the mattress. I can see your face properly without squinting through the sedation. Everything is still very slightly soft at the edges. You're real, but the world around you is losing its definition. Just you. You're still sharp. You look exhausted. Not from today, though today has clearly not been easy, but the deeper kind of exhausted. The kind that takes months to accumulate and isn't fixed by one good night of sleep. You've been running on empty for a while. When was the last time you actually slept 8 hours? Not the 6 hours of interrupted half-sleep you get on a normal night where you wake up twice to check your phone for something work-adjacent that could have waited until morning. 8 full hours. The kind where you actually feel like a person afterward. You have no idea, do you? You've lost track of what that feels like. I know it wasn't last night, because you texted me at 3 a.m, complaining about the white noise machine being too loud, which means you'd been lying awake long enough before that to make the purchase, set it up, run it, and then decide it was wrong. And the night before that, you told me you'd had that dream again. The one where you're in a meeting and everyone can tell you're not prepared and you can't find the door out. You carry this with you everywhere. This constant, grinding, low-level vigilance, waiting for the next thing to go wrong so you can catch it before it hits the floor. You don't have to do that in here. Nobody is expecting anything from you in this room. The world on the other side of this door can manage for a few hours without you holding it together. So rest, just for right now. Lean against the rail and close your eyes. I'm not going anywhere, and neither are you. For once, let someone else be the one who stays awake. That's it. Just like that. Your eyes are almost closed. The tension in your shoulders that you maintain all the time, the kind that's become so habitual, you probably don't even notice it anymore. It's almost gone. Your breathing has slowed down by about a third since you leaned against the rail. You're doing the hand thing, the thumb tracing patterns against my palm. You always do something like that when you're overwhelmed, but you can't say so out loud. You find a texture, something physical and immediate, and you trace it until the noise levels out a little. Keep doing it. I'm not going anywhere. I want you to hear my voice for a little while longer, and then I want you to just let it fade into the background, the way it always does when you fall asleep on my couch. You stop processing the words at some point, and it just becomes sound, something present and close and steady. And that's enough. That's what you need right now, just something steady. You give steadiness to everyone around you. You're the kind of person people call when something goes wrong, because something about your presence makes things seem more manageable. You walk into a crisis and you get calm, and that calm spreads outward. You do it for everyone, but nobody has ever really given it back to you in the same quantity. Not consistently, not without it costing you something. You've learned to function without a net because you've built the assumption that there isn't one into your baseline. There's a net. There has been one for 2 years, whether you knew it or not. You've been borrowing steadiness from me every time you came over and fell asleep on my couch. Every time you called at an unreasonable hour, and I answered without making you explain why. Every time you sat next to me at something difficult, and the presence of me nearby made it more bearable. You were always allowed to let that be mine to give. You just didn't know you were taking it. I've got you. Same as always. Only now you know. Let yourself rest. We'll figure out everything else in the morning. There it is. Your eyes are completely closed now. The neck tension is gone. That specific line between your brows that appears when you're holding something together mentally has smoothed out entirely. You've stopped monitoring the room. You've stopped checking. You're just here. This is what I was talking about. This is the version of you that belongs entirely to yourself. Nobody else gets this. That's not something I say to be possessive, although I'll admit the feeling is there. It's just an accurate observation. The vast majority of people in your life have never seen you at rest. Truly at rest, without any part of you still performing for an audience of one. You showed it to me because you decided I was safe. I'm going to make sure you never regret that decision. You've been building fortresses since I met you. Layer after layer of presentation and competence and capable, measured, impenetrable composure. And every layer is real. You genuinely are all of those things. I'm I'm not suggesting the fortress is fake, but you built it in self-defense. And you've been living inside it for so long that you've forgotten what it feels like to leave the door open. I know where the door is. I've always known where it is. And starting tonight, I'm the only one with the key. I should probably feel alarmed by how certain I am about all of this. There's a version of a reasonable person who looks at the intensity of what I've described tonight and applies some clinical word to it that makes it sound like something to be treated rather than something to be trusted. But I've had 2 years to examine the nature of it. I know what it is. It isn't a projection or a fixation or a construction built out of loneliness. It's just the simple, overwhelming fact that you are the specific person I want to take care of for the rest of however long either of us has. You're mine. You've been mine.
You just get to know about it now.
Sleep. I'll be here when you wake up. And then I'll prove every single word.
It's pulling me under very fast now.
Everything in my peripheral vision has gone soft. My hands feel very heavy. The sound of the monitor has gotten slow and distant, like hearing something from underwater. And the overhead light that was too bright an hour ago has dimmed to something almost comfortable. I'm going. Keep your thumb against my palm, just exactly the way you have it right now. Don't move it. Don't adjust. I can feel the rhythm of you pressing down slightly on every other stroke, the way you've always done it. Since the first time you held my hand, during that terrible movie neither of us will admit we watched. You don't know I noticed that pattern. You do it unconsciously. But I've been tracking it for 2 years, and it is the most precisely specific thing I know about you. And when I feel it now, here, like this, my heart rate drops on the monitor. The nurses must think the medication is working perfectly. It is, just not in the way they mean. You're breathing slower now. I can hear it. Long and even, with a slight pause at the bottom of each exhale. You're almost all the way down. I want you to know something about that sound, about the specific rhythm of you breathing quietly next to me. It is the most grounding thing I have ever found. Steadier than anything I've built, anything I've controlled, anything I've managed to construct in my own life to keep myself functional and forward-facing. The sound of you asleep near me is the only thing that has ever made me feel genuinely, unreservedly okay. I've been trying to get you into the building for 2 years. You're here now, and I know you feel what I feel. I know because of the thumb and the staying and the tear on your jaw earlier that you didn't wipe away. So sleep. Let me hear you breathe. Tomorrow we start over. Properly. No performance. No calculation. No safe distance. Just this. Whatever this is. I'm not letting go.
This is it. Almost there.
The last of the light is narrowing down to a single point, somewhere in the center of my vision, and everything around it has dissolved into a quiet, even dark. I can barely feel the pillow under my head. The monitor is very far away. Even the temperature of the room has gone to some neutral, featureless warmth. But I can still feel your hand. That's the last thing, always. Everything else goes first. The sounds, the physical weight, the sense of the room around me, and the last thing is whatever I'm holding, whatever is keeping me tethered. Tonight it's you, your thumb, still moving, slower now, matching my breathing without meaning to, the way two people start to breathe in sync when they've been close long enough. I have wanted this moment for 2 years. Exactly this. Not a grand gesture, not a carefully articulated confession under better circumstances. Just this. Being so close to you that our breathing aligns and the room goes quiet and neither of us has to perform anything for anyone. You're all the way down now. I can tell by the weight of your hand. There's no more conscious grip. It's just warm pressure. The specific warmth of someone who has finally stopped holding tension in their body. You look different when you sleep. Less defended. Like the version of yourself that existed before you learned to make yourself smaller to fit into spaces that weren't built for you. I want to build you spaces that fit. That's what tomorrow is. The beginning of me building things to the right specifications for once. Not what keeps the friendship safe. Not what keeps her comfortable enough to stay. Just, what does she actually need? What fits? I know what fits. Sleep now, both of us. The monitor is slow and low and steady. Your breath and mine are matched. The room is ours for as long as we need it. Tomorrow. But tonight, just this. Just exactly this.